Hey everybody, welcome back to an all-new episode of 10 to Life with me, Annie Elise. I hope you're having a good day today, although honestly with today's case I think I'm probably going to ruin your day, but it is one that I think needs to be told and deserves awareness around it. Now if you're brand new and you're checking out the channel for the first time, my name is Annie and I jump on here and I share with you guys a case that has either been bothering me for one reason or another, or one that I just really feel deserves to be heard, and these victims' voices that deserve to live on and tell their story of what happened to them, because I think that the only way that true change will ever happen is if we evoke different emotions and we hear what so many people went through to where then we demand change. Now for you returning 10 to lifers, my lifers, you already know what it is we do over here, but just wanted to give the breakdown for those of you who may be new to the channel. Now if you've been watching some of my videos too, you know that the last couple of them we've had a lot of B-roll over them because my jaw is still recovering from surgery and I'm very swollen, and as I'm talking sometimes I have to like hold my jaw, I have to move weird. And I think on my last video I said that I was hopeful that it was going to be the last one that had B-roll over it. I got a little ahead of myself, but I really do think that this might be the last one, so fingers crossed. I'm very hopeful for it. We'll see. Now, I feel like almost every case I talk about with you guys on this channel is usually, of course, very heartbreaking or disturbing in some sort of way. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But cases that involve vulnerable groups like the elderly or children are always cases that are especially heartbreaking to me. And what makes today's case even more upsetting is that it seems like the death of an innocent child could have easily been prevented. It happened on Long Island, right outside of New York City. Child Protective Services received numerous calls and numerous messages about a pair of children who teachers were extremely worried about. These children were dirty, they were starving, they were scared. So CPS opened up an investigation. But that investigation closed within days and nothing changed. And it happened again, and again, and again. And I always ask, why? Those kinds of problems, children who've been seriously neglected, don't just go away on their own by some miracle. And eventually, the nightmare would come true in this case. Because in 2020, on January 17th, 911 got a phone call that an 8-year-old boy had fallen and lost consciousness. Now, the boy was transferred to a hospital where he was later pronounced as dead. But the thing is, when the police started investigating, the truth about what that little boy went through was revealed. And the situation left a lot of people wondering, how could something like this happen? Why didn't somebody step in and do something? There were so many phone calls, so many warning signs, and honestly, so many opportunities to intervene. As I said, today's case is very disturbing and there is a lot to go over, guys, so we're gonna dive right in. So first, we have to go back to 2013 in Suffolk County, New York. 32-year-old Michael Valva and 29-year-old Justina Valva are this very attractive young married couple living on Long Island, right outside of New York City. Michael is a cop with the NYPD and, honestly, in my opinion, looks the part. Justina is a pretty blonde Polish immigrant, and the two of them got married in 2004, so they had been married for about 9 years at this point, and they also have 3 kids together. All of their children are boys. Anthony was born in 2009, Thomas born in 2011, and Andrew born in 2013. And we don't know a lot about the early stages of Michael and Justina's relationship, but we do know that by 2011, when their middle son was born, they did start having some issues. Michael had always been known for his short temper. His emotions had always kind of just been all over the place. But the unpredictability of his anger had apparently grown over time. He seemed to have less and less control and began relentlessly verbally abusing Justina. His behavior concerned and scared her, but they had created a family together, and she really wanted to try and make it work. Now, Justina held out hopes that things would improve, but it ended up being the opposite that happened. And in late 2014, Michael ended up starting an affair with a woman named Angela Polina, and Justina found out about this affair. Now for Justina, it was the last straw. Michael was angry, abusive, and now, on top of that, he was unfaithful. She had run out of excuses to stay in this relationship, so Justina ended up leaving Michael, and in 2015, a very lengthy divorce battle began between the two of them. The biggest argument during the divorce proceedings was who was going to get custody of the kids. And in late 2016, while the divorce was still ongoing, Michael dropped a bombshell. He started accusing Justina of hurting their children physically. He said that Justina starved the children, wouldn't give them any water, and also refused to give them any appropriate medical care. This last point came about when their oldest son, Anthony, became sick and had a fever. See, apparently Justina didn't think that it was necessary to take him to the ER right away, and she was waiting to see if the fever would subside. So Michael interpreted this as being a negligent parent. In September 2017, a judge agreed to give Michael full custody of the kids, with Justina only getting to see the kids every other weekend. Now, to Justina, the accusations about this kind of abuse had come out of nowhere. They shocked and also angered her. To her, it seemed like Michael cared less about the kids than he did about hurting her. She wanted to try to keep fighting to get full custody of the kids, but she also couldn't afford an expert legal team like Michael could. You see, Justina had been the primary caregiver for the kids. She didn't have a lot of her own money. On the other hand, Michael, he was a police officer with the NYPD. So Justina felt like the entire custody battle was biased in Michael's favor because of his job. The judge just seemingly believed Michael when he accused Justina of the abuse too, even though he didn't have any evidence of it. And to make matters worse, the judge didn't believe Justina when she made the same claims. She told the judge that Michael was the one doing everything that he was accusing her of doing. She said that he was the one harming the kids. He was the one refusing to give them water and refusing to give them food. But the judge didn't listen to her allegations with the same seriousness that he gave Michael. In fact, he dismissed her entirely. Now, at one point during the custody proceedings, Justina was telling the judge that when she saw the kids, they were dirty, they were hungry. And the judge replied with, quote, "Miss Valva, move along. I can't remember everything you're saying because you're saying so much." And when Justina asked the judge why he was giving custody of the kids to Michael, he responded simply, "Because I said so." So this furthered the idea in Justina's mind that Michael was getting special treatment because he was a police officer. But she wasn't going to take no for an answer, and she continued fighting for custody. Unfortunately, though, Justina couldn't seem to catch a break, because then, in January of 2018, her two oldest sons, Anthony and Thomas, told a CPS worker that Justina was in fact hurting them. Now, Justina says that at first, she couldn't understand what would make the boys say this, but then she started suspecting that Michael was coaching them. At this point, the boys were living with their dad and his new fiancée, Angela, the one that he had had an affair with. Angela also had 3 children, all girls, and to Justina, something just seemed off about this entire thing. Her suspicions were proven true anytime Justina saw the kids as well. There was always something wrong with them whenever they visited her. They were either hungry, or sometimes they were covered in urine, and they were always incredibly cold. And I'm talking cold in terms of actual temperature, not their behavior. And they were so cold to the point where their skin was bright red and it was cold to the touch. It was very bizarre. Now, what actually worried her even more was that 2 of the boys, Anthony and Thomas, had also been diagnosed with autism. She felt like Michael and Angela didn't fully understand how autism affected her children, and therefore Michael and Angela didn't know how to properly care for them if they didn't understand it. For example, the kids might feel hungry, but not know how to properly express it. So, we know it's up to the parents to be proactive to make sure that the children are fed. Now, obviously, that's something that all parents have to do, but it's also something that some parents with autistic children might have to be more diligent about. To Justina, Michael and Angela didn't take the autism diagnosis seriously. In fact, it seemed like they didn't even believe in the diagnosis altogether. So at this point, Justina wasn't really sure what to do. So she would file CPS report after CPS report, but each time she was ignored. She would file a report one day, and it would just be closed the next. She was so frustrated that she ended up creating a Twitter page in 2018 that she called Stand Against Child Abuse. She started documenting everything that her kids told her about their dad and about Angela. And remember, her reports to CPS weren't taken seriously, so she figured that maybe video documentation could help her case. At this point, Anthony was 9, Thomas was 8, and Andrew was 5. In the videos, the kids tell Justina how Michael and Angela would refuse to give them food and how they were often hungry. And in one example, one of the boys said that he had an accident and that as punishment, Michael and Angela refused to give him any food.
I was about at Daddy's house.
You weren't. You just had a pee-pee accident.
Yes.
That's not a being bad boy.
But Mommy.
What, baby?
When we put us at me.
What happened?
And then he didn't want me to have breakfast and anything.
Didn't want you to have breakfast?
No.
Andrew, were you hungry?
Okay, Andrew.
The kids also talked about how Michael and Angela were telling them that they couldn't see their mom. They couldn't tell her that they love her. They couldn't hug her. And if they tried to see her, if they tried to see Justina, they'd be punished, and they wouldn't get anything to eat or drink.
Daddy said to me that I can't listen to you and can't hug you. And I'm saying, I love you, Mommy, and miss you, Mommy.
Why?
I don't know why.
You always can hug Mommy, kiss Mommy, and tell Mommy what? That you love Mommy and miss Mommy, right?
Right.
Yeah. What's gonna happen if you tell me that you love me and miss me and you give me a kiss and a hug? What's gonna happen?
I don't know what's gonna happen. And then Daddy's gonna put me outside.
What's gonna happen if you come to Mommy?
Then I'm gonna get in trouble.
What's trouble? Punished? How? How you gonna get punished? What she's gonna do? Put you upstairs? What's gonna happen upstairs? I can't hear you. We'll do nothing. And then what's gonna happen? Nothing to eat and drink. She can do that, baby. That's why you were afraid to come to Mommy? Yeah?
Are you going?
It's okay, baby.
In another video, it seems like Justina somehow snuck a recording device into one of the children's bags. And in that video, Michael and Angela are heard almost coaching the kids to say things like, "Mommy, you're not nice," and "I want to live with Daddy."
Thomas, I love Daddy.
No, I want Mommy.
I love Daddy.
I want Mommy.
Mommy is mean.
Mommy is mean.
Mommy is mean.
Mommy is mean.
Mommy said,
Dog.
who do you love?
Daddy and Angela.
Who do you... Huh? Who do you want to live with?
Daddy and Angela.
There you go, buddy.
I want to live with Daddy. I want to see Daddy. I want to see Daddy.
I will, but I want to see his Daddy.
Mommy, you're not nice. I want to live with Daddy. I want to see Daddy. I want to see Daddy.
I will, but I want to see his Daddy.
Mommy, you're not nice.
Mommy, you're not nice.
Mommy, you're not nice.
You are not my
I'm
nice.
not proud of you, Mommy.
I'm not proud of you, Mommy.
I have fun with Daddy and Angela.
I will fun with Daddy and Angela. Oh, we're fun. Yeah.
Thomas, do you want to stay with me?
Yeah.
Who do you love?
Daddy and Angela.
Who do you want to stay with?
Daddy and Angela.
Who do you miss?
Daddy and Angela.
Who do you want to live with?
Daddy and Angela.
Mommy is mean.
Daddy is mean.
Mommy hits me.
Mommy hits me.
Mommy don't touch me.
Mommy don't touch me.
I love Angela.
I love Angela.
I love Daddy.
I love Daddy.
What do you say, Anthony? I love Angela.
I love Angela.
I can't hear you.
What do you say?
I love Angela.
I love Angela.
Louder, Anthony. Anthony, I love Angela.
I love Angela.
I love Daddy.
I love Daddy.
I love you, Anthony. I love you.
Can I have some more water? I'm thirsty.
Now, in my opinion, the boys sound enthusiastic and genuine when they say stuff like, I want mommy. But when they're told to repeat things like, I love daddy and I love Angela, they seem almost quiet and hesitant. The videos convinced Justina that Michael had coached the boys to tell CPS workers that she was in fact hurting them. She also discovered that it wasn't just Angela and Michael telling the boys negative things about her. According to the boys, Angela's young daughters were also telling them things and telling them that they wanted Justina dead. Now, the girls were young, just like the boys, so maybe they were just repeating things that Michael and Angela had said, but still, it would be concerning if the parents were talking about things like that so openly.
Yes. Donna still wants me to push you down. I did push you down still.
Who's saying that?
Donna.
Dolana wants you to push me down?
Yeah, and I didn't. Again.
Yeah.
Again.
What?
Mommy, stop. And I didn't, Mommy.
Why she wants you to push me down?
Because
Take a parking spot.
she wants you to be dead.
She wants me to be dead?
Yeah.
She said that to you?
Yes.
What did she say?
She said, let Mommy be dead.
She told you that she wants me to be dead?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
no, Mommy!
And I don't want you to do. And I don't want you to be like that.
Oh, no,
my
Mommy!
God.
And I did push you down, really.
Excuse me, Mom.
I really did push you down, Mommy.
That is not nice what
Mommy,
she's
I did
telling
push
you.
you down.
Mommy,
I
Mommy,
know.
I did push you down.
Mommy.
Mommy, I did push you down.
I know.
Unfortunately, though, these videos didn't seem to help Justina at all. CPS still wasn't taking her seriously, and the boys' condition just worsened over the next couple of years. Whenever Justina saw them, the boys were tired, thin, and hungry. On numerous occasions, Justina would find large bruises all over their bodies as well, and in one instance, Thomas had bruises from a spanking that was from multiple days before. He was still in intense pain and was having a lot of trouble walking. But when CPS investigated, and I use that term loosely, they would say that the boys were fine and that they were actually in great health. Now, at one point, an officer even told Justina that it was legal for a parent to spank a child. But to Justina, it seemed like the bruises weren't just from an easy spanking or a simple spanking. Justina already had a limited time with her children, but Michael was then even trying his hardest to limit her time even further. So between 2015 and 2019, Justina ended up calling 911 about 33 times, and most of these calls were all because Michael would refuse to give her the children. In another video that Justina took, Michael is seen holding the boys and preventing them from running to their mother. The caption that Justina put on that video reads, "Cop father forbids the children from coming to their mommy by painfully squeezing their hands and making them cry in order to prove that children do not want to come to their mommy. The father of my kids is a cop who is allowed to abuse his children."
Hi, Anthony! Hi, Anthony! Go, Cookie Cups! Go, 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 baby! Hi, buddy! Hi, Andrew! Let him go! Hi, Andrew! Let them go! They can come to me! Let him go! Let him go! He wants to come here, Andrew! Let him go! What are you doing to them? Every single come here, baby! I got you! I got you! I got
I'll be
you!
back.
No, he's not crying that he's gonna be back. He's crying because you're shitting them. Okay, I got you. Quickly, let's go. Let's go, Tommy. Let's go. Okay.
So at this point, Justina, she just felt hopeless. CPS wasn't helping her and the courts weren't helping her, all while she was watching the health and well-being of her children just slowly deteriorate. Justina had had enough, and she even tried filing an official complaint against the Suffolk County PD. However, the complaint was dismissed almost as soon as it was made, and the police department determined that they were, quote, acting appropriately. So what was going on here? It wasn't just the fallout from a bitter custody battle. There was actual neglect going on. And we know because the school that the boys attended, East Morrich's elementary school, had also been expressing their concerns about the boys too. They had been expressing them for years. According to their teachers, the boys would come to school covered in urine and feces, and they were so hungry that they would scour the ground for crumbs of food. After lunch, they would search the table for any scraps, like the crust of bread from maybe a discarded sandwich or anything like that. And Anthony and Thomas's teachers noted that this behavior had grown worse and worse as the years went on. After one particular summer, a teacher even noted that Anthony was so obsessed with food that it seemed abnormal and it was becoming concerning. The boys were constantly crying about how hungry they were. When they had food with them, it was only half of a Nutella sandwich and 2 small snacks, and this was for the entire school day. Things got so bad that one teacher said that she started keeping a log of how often the boys asked for food. I mean, guys, that is how frequently it was happening. She even noted the boys' weight and found that Anthony had lost 11 pounds over the course of 9 months, and Thomas had only gained 1 pound in 20 months, which at his age, Thomas should have been gaining around 5 to 10 pounds a year. So this same teacher would give the boys snacks, but then when Angela found out that the teacher was feeding the boys, she became irate, and she ended up yelling at the teacher over this. She said that the boys were liars, they were being manipulative, and they weren't even actually hungry. The teacher tried to talk to both Angela and Michael about feeding the boys more, but they didn't want to hear anything about it. Anyway, the teachers were also becoming increasingly aware of Michael and Angela's involvement. The boys would tell them that they would get in trouble for seemingly everything, for not calling Angela mom, not saying good morning to her, not using their quote manners, or being lazy. And like Justina, the teachers also thought that Michael and Angela didn't understand the boys' disability. According to Michael and Angela, Anthony was just a bad kid, that he behaved poorly on purpose, and Thomas would just follow in his footsteps. A few times, the boys would come to school with bruises all over their bodies. And once, Thomas had a large bruise on his forehead, and he told the teachers that his dad had thrown a backpack at him. The teachers would tell the boys to go to the nurse, but they refused. The boys said that their parents told them they weren't allowed to do that. There was one time when Thomas had really bad-looking bruises, and the teachers finally convinced him to go to the school nurse. Once he was there, the nurse discovered extreme bruises all along Thomas's back. They reported it to CPS, but nothing happened, and at this point, the teachers and the principal of the school were very upset and very concerned. They, too, had already filed numerous reports to CPS, but the condition of the boys was just getting worse. They were thinner, often covered in urine or feces, and they would have scratches, bruises, and marks all over their bodies. During a conversation with the school counselor in May of 2019, Thomas said that his parents often sprayed him down with the water hose, also that they made him sleep in the garage and made him go to the bathroom outside. The principal and the teachers had had enough at this point, and they decided that they would just flood CPS with complaints and emergency calls. Just like Justina, they were calling CPS over and over and over. And just like with Justina, CPS dismissed the complaints within days. In fact, Michael started becoming increasingly angry with the school and even accused them of harassing him and his family. So everything was just going unacknowledged, unfollowed up on, just case closed after case, closed. And unfortunately, on January 17th, 2020, everybody's worst nightmares would come true. Around 9:40 a.m., Michael called 911. He said that his son, Thomas, had fallen and lost consciousness. At the time of the call, Michael was administering CPR, but Thomas was unresponsive.
Suffolk Police 843, what is the location of your emergency? Hello, do you need the police?
I need ambulance immediately. My son's not breathing.
Okay, stay on the line. Your son, who's not breathing, how old is he?
8.
8?
Yes. He fell down. He banged his head.
Okay.
He's okay.
Okay.
Took him. I gave him a shower to try and help him out a little bit. Stop breathing.
An ambulance and police officers rushed to the scene, and Thomas was quickly taken to the hospital. Almost as soon as they arrived at the scene, Thomas, who was only 8 years old, was pronounced dead. But doctors, they were very confused because when Thomas arrived, his body temperature was at 76 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, a normal body temperature is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, body temperature does drop after somebody dies, but if Thomas had truly just died a few hours ago, his body would not be that cold yet. In fact, it would have taken about 11 hours for Thomas's body temperature to drop that low, meaning that Thomas had actually died many hours earlier, and not just that morning, as his father Michael claimed. Medical officials listed Thomas's cause of death as organ failure due to hypothermia. And while yes, it was cold outside, Thomas would have had to have been put under extreme conditions to have died that way. So of course, now an investigation was opened, because they needed to look into Thomas's death. Detectives started their investigation by questioning both Michael and Angela. They both said that Thomas had hit his head on a door jamb, and immediately after hitting his head, he was confused and he wet himself. So Michael cleaned Thomas up, showered him, dressed him, and then put him on the couch in the basement. When Michael went back to check on Thomas, he found that he was unresponsive, so that's when he started performing CPR and when he called 911. But the detective that was listening to the story felt like it didn't make any sense. Thomas had abrasions on his face that almost looked like road rash. His body had been freezing cold to the touch. He didn't have any clothes on, and he had injuries to his knees, his elbows, and sides. So if he had just hit his head on a door jamb, where did all of these other injuries come from? Michael said that he had dressed Thomas, but where were his clothes? I mean, things weren't adding up. So then Michael changed his story. This time he said that Thomas had fallen in the driveway while waiting for the school bus. Michael rushed over, found that he was unconscious, brought him inside, put him on the couch, and started performing CPR. But guys, as we know, it never looks good when somebody's story changes that quickly. And in fact, it's one of the first warning signs to detectives that something isn't right. And that's exactly how detectives were starting to feel, like something was not adding up. So they questioned Angela, who told them a similar story. But she also gave detectives permission to look at their home security footage, so it seemed like she didn't have a lot to hide. So over the next few days, detectives started to look at the footage. They were able to access it online with a username and password. However, just a few days after logging into the system, a lot of those videos were suddenly deleted, and then the password to the account was changed. Nobody from the police department had done it, so it was probably Angela or Michael. And luckily, though, it didn't really matter because the police had already obtained the footage that they needed. And what they found was incredibly disturbing. There were cameras everywhere in the family home. Everywhere. Outside, inside, in the children's room, in the garage. I mean, literally everywhere. Michael and Angela were recording everything that their children did. What they ate, where they went in the house, the conversations that they had with each other. Every single thing. And in these recordings, Michael and Angela are seen screaming and verbally abusing them, even Angela's daughters. Physical was limited to the boys, though. The footage showed them being ruthlessly punished for the smallest things. They were picked up by their wrists, they were dragged across the floor, they were thrown to the ground, they were dragged down the stairs, they were denied all food. Anthony and Thomas were forced to wear diapers. They were locked in their rooms and couldn't even leave to go to the bathroom. Instead, Angela and Michael had placed dog pee pads in the children's room and told them to go to the bathroom that way. Other footage showed a tent in the backyard with children's shoes outside of it. In this footage, it's freezing outside, and Michael is seen talking to somebody inside this tent. This was all in addition to the extreme verbal harm that the kids were subjected to every single day. And while the boys received some sort of physical punishment, Anthony and Thomas, they seemed to get the worst of it. One of the most concerning things that the detectives found was that one of the cameras located inside the garage was labeled as kids' room. This footage showed many nights where Anthony and Thomas were being forced to sleep in the garage without any clothing on, without pillows, without blankets. And in the footage, the kids are just physically shaking and falling to the floor anytime they try to get up because they are just so weak. And it would be terrible enough if this only happened a couple of nights, but guys, it happened constantly. Thomas and Anthony were likely forced to sleep in the freezing cold garage more than they ever slept inside the house. The day before Thomas was officially pronounced dead, footage shows him again sleeping in this unheated garage. He has no clothing on, he's shivering, and according to the weather that day, it was only 19 degrees outside. Thomas is seen falling to the floor anytime he tries to walk. Police were able to obtain messages between Angela and Michael during this time, and Angela was sending messages to Michael with videos of Thomas shivering, and she was actually making fun of Thomas in this. In an audio recording from the home, Michael is heard saying, "He keeps face planting on the concrete," and Angela replies with, "You know why he's falling." And Michael replies, "Because he's cold. Boo fucking who." Angela is then heard saying, "What are you doing?" And Michael says, "Suffocating him. That's what I'm doing." Angela then tells him to stop because people might see. She doesn't tell him to stop because it might kill Thomas. She tells him to stop because it might affect the image that they were trying to project. Now, if that doesn't tell you what kind of people they were, honestly, I don't know what does. So other than confirming horrible levels of abuse, the footage also confirmed that both Michael and Angela were aware that Thomas was freezing cold in the garage. Footage obtained from other areas of the house during this time picks up on a conversation between Angela and one of the kids too. One of the kids asks Angela why Thomas can't walk, and Angela says, "Because he's hypothermic. When you're washed with cold water and it's freezing, you get hypothermia." Now, officers were confused by that comment. When you're washed with cold water? What did that mean? Did Thomas's parents wash him with water before putting him in the garage? And police would determine that unfortunately that is exactly what happened. Michael had used a hose to douse Thomas with cold water before putting him in the garage. And to make matters worse, if that's even possible, when Michael went to check on Thomas and found him unresponsive, he took Thomas's body inside to the bathroom. There, on the bathroom floor, Thomas's unresponsive body sat while Angela was fixing her hair in the mirror, just a few feet away. Thomas is then seen filling the bathtub with hot water before placing Thomas's body in the tub. Now, at this point, there was no hope of saving Thomas, so detectives guessed that Michael did it to warm up Thomas's body before the paramedics arrived after that 911 call. All of this security footage from the home was evidence enough that Michael and Angela were abusing the kids. But investigators also discovered the numerous reports filed by Justina and the elementary school too. And the school's calls to CPS had started when Michael obtained full custody in late 2017. Get this, between Justina and the school, CPS was contacted about the boys over 50 times, 50, meaning that CPS had over 50 opportunities to save those kids from that terrible situation, but they didn't. Which obviously just contributed to Justina's initial theory that Michael was getting special treatment because he was a police officer. As investigators were finding out all of this information, Michael and Angela were claiming that Thomas had been in perfect health and that his death had all been sudden. Michael even supposedly told people that he'd, quote, been through more stressful things than this, which, what's more stressful than one of your own children dying? And apparently Michael was stressed about how much money Thomas's funeral would cost him because he didn't waste any time setting up a GoFundMe page to raise money for it. On the page, Michael wrote, "It is with great sadness that I must bury my 8-year-old son. He passed recently due to a tragic accident. At this time, I am not able to handle these unforeseen costs on my own, and if there is help anyone can provide, we would greatly appreciate it. In lieu of floral arrangements, we ask that a donation be made instead." And Michael received $10,000 in donations. However, the donations were refunded, and the page was taken down on January 24th when it was revealed that Michael had been lying all along. January 24th was significant because Thomas's autopsy results were released to the public that day. People were shocked when they found out that Thomas had died from hypothermia. His body temperature had been extremely low, and he had brown spotting in his stomach, which often happens when somebody dies that way. The report also indicated that Thomas had bruises on his head, forehead, nose, eyelid, and upper lip. He also had various other injuries that were recent, but they weren't from falling, which is what Michael, remember, had initially said. These injuries were more consistent with being hit. So pair this with the findings from the police, and it was clear that Thomas's real cause of death was homicide. Michael and Angela were both arrested on January 24th, 2020, and they were charged with second-degree murder and child endangerment. The other children, Anthony and Andrew, as well as Angela's daughters, were all removed from the home. The girls went to live with their biological father, and Anthony and Andrew were finally reunited with Justina. The boys had been through a lot, clearly. They missed their brother, who, despite all the atrocious he had suffered, had also tried to be a happy little boy. The boys went from being a trio to a pair, and they were now having a very difficult time dealing with the aftermath. Both boys were diagnosed with PTSD, and Justina had to put them in therapy. Months after Thomas's death, they started opening up about the they experienced while living with Michael and Angela. Justina shared these accounts on her Twitter page, but I want to address that the following information is all alleged, and it also deals with sexual violence. The boys said that Michael and Angela would occasionally take them to a random house, drop them off, and that 4 adults would be waiting for them inside. What the boys would experience in this house is absolutely disgusting. They said that they were locked up, punched, beaten with logs, their mouths were taped shut, and they were often forced to eat hot peppers and their own feces. And again, this is very similar to other cases that we have talked about, more recently the Shanda Vanderart case, where she forced her child to eat incredibly spicy food. And while these acts are already horrible enough, it just gets worse. These adults would touch the boys inappropriately, they would insert of them, and they were also forced to perform on these adults. The boys didn't know the address of the house or the identity of the adults, but they did say that they knew what the house looked like and they could point it out if they saw it. The boys claimed they were often so bad that they couldn't even walk afterward. However, like I said, all of this information is alleged. Justina wrote a letter to the Suffolk County DA urging them to look into these matters, but the allegations were never investigated. Neither Michael nor Angela has ever been charged with a sexual crime, and it was also not part of their trials. The trials for Michael and Angela started 2.5 years after Thomas's death. It was decided that they would be tried separately, and of course they both tried to blame each other for Thomas's death. Michael said it was Angela who caused Thomas to die, and Angela said it was Michael. Michael's trial began in September of 2022 when he pleaded not guilty. His defense team claimed that while yes, Michael may have done some awful things to Thomas, he didn't expect him to die. They argued that Thomas had a lot of behavioral problems because of his autism, and that Michael didn't know how to properly handle them. So according to them, Michael never thought that putting his child in a freezing cold garage could kill him, but the jury was shown over 30 videos from security footage in the Valva home, and that footage pretty much sealed Michael's fate. It showed a man who was violent, abusive, and callous. It showed kids being beaten, forced to use the floor as their bathroom, shivering as they lay on the cold, hard floor in the garage, and more. It was clear that Michael was intending to hurt Thomas and the other boys. So a month later, the jury found Michael guilty of second-degree murder. His sentencing hearing took place a month later, and Michael's defense team tried to use his position as a police officer to persuade the judge for a lesser sentence. Michael also read a statement during his sentence which read, "First, I want to express to you and everyone involved I am truly sorry. I am regretful and ashamed, heartbroken and grief-stricken. I loved Thomas with all my heart. I terribly failed my boys instead of providing them with unconditional love and support. My actions were neglectful and abusive towards my boys, resulting in the tragic death of Thomas. Judge Condon, I did not want my son to die. I never imagined he would die. However, I lost my way thinking that punishments were temporary and would eventually get us back to normal. I was so wrong, and it cost Thomas his life." Now, guys, I have a lot of things to say about this statement, but I'll just say a couple. 1, Michael clearly did not love Thomas with all his heart. Thomas wouldn't be dead if that was the case. Also, the punishments that he was talking about weren't just punishments. Starving children, beating them, and forcing them to pee on puppy pads isn't a temporary punishment. It's actively harming your child. And luckily, the judge wasn't having any of it. Before sentencing Michael, he stated, "I don't think that you intended to kill Thomas, not at all. But there's no getting around that Thomas and Anthony lived their lives in constant duress in the place that they should have felt the safest, their own home." So the judge gave Michael the maximum sentence, 25 years to life. Angela's trial started in early 2023, and it went similar to Michael's. However, Angela actually testified during her own trial, something that Michael didn't do. She claimed that Michael was the mastermind of everything, and she said that she didn't want anything negative to ever happen to the boys. But again, the security footage proved how wrong those claims were. Multiple people also testified that Angela had always hated Michael's children, and that she always wanted the worst for them. So, a jury found Angela guilty of second-degree murder, and her sentencing hearing was in April 2023. At the hearing, Angela had nothing to say, which really shocked observers, because usually people try to apologize or express regret, but there was nothing. The judge sentenced her to 25 years to life and said, It wasn't until I saw and heard what you did and said in this trial that I realized how evil you really are. I've had the opportunity to visit the prison where you will be sent, and my only regret is that they do not have a garage there with no heat, no mattress, no blankets, and no pillows. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, the aftermath of this crime shocked the community to its core. People had genuinely thought that Thomas died from this freak accident, and it was initially reported by the news that he was a healthy little boy. But the release of the autopsy results left people stunned. They learned what happened, and the question that kept coming back was, how could this happen, especially when the abuse had been reported to CPS so many times? It was just such a glaring example again of how broken our system truly is. The community has deeply mourned the loss of Thomas, and I can't imagine how difficult this has been for Justina because she really tried everything that she could. She was forced to sit by and watch while all of this was happening to her kids, and she has since sued CPS and the school district for $200 million. And while I do think she is justified in suing CPS, I do think that the school district did everything that they could. I mean, like her, they called CPS numerous times to report their concerns about Thomas and his brother, but CPS just did nothing to follow up. Justina was offered a settlement of $3 million, but she refused, and they have yet to reach an agreement. And that kind of proves to me that she's not just after money. I mean, sure, she's not settling at $3 million, but if she just wanted a quick payday, she would have settled. I think she really just wants to hit them where it hurts. I'm going to take you for as much money as I possibly can, not because I want the money, but because I want you to pay. I want to gut punch you. I want to hit you hard. I know listening to stories like this can be very difficult, but they need to be told so that we can push for reform and really prevent this kind of thing from happening in the future. Why is our system so broken? Why do there need to be hundreds of reports because there were 50 and nothing was done? Why do there need to be hundreds and hundreds of reports in order for action to be taken? Why did a scuzzy, sleazeball police officer get his word taken over the mother's word? I mean, it enrages me because had they listened to her, had they followed up appropriately, had they taken her concerns seriously, these boys wouldn't have been tortured for a good chunk of their life, and one of them may very well still be alive today. And now it's like you have this mother who's mourning the loss of her son, brothers who no longer have their brother, just reeling and grieving and grappling with the severity and the reality of all of this. Why? Because fucking somebody wanted to shove their paperwork and check the box that it was completed? It just makes me furious. And I hate talking about these cases because they make me so incredibly emotional, especially being a parent. But again, it's like we need this emotion and we need this anger to evoke change and maybe that's just such a naive and optimistic way of thinking about it. I don't even know. I just feel like, how is change ever going to happen unless we talk about this, unless we call out where people have failed miserably in their jobs? It's enraging and infuriating. I appreciate you sticking through and hearing his story today and letting his voice carry on, because his dad failed him, his stepmom failed him, the system failed him, everybody failed him. Everybody except his mother, who was really trying hard to fight for him. It's so incredibly heartbreaking. This poor 8-year-old boy just left to shiver and die. It makes me sick to my stomach. It really does. And so I appreciate you hearing his story today. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of 10 to Life. And until the next one, please stay safe. Thank you. Bye.